Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here with a Screenwriter's Rant on Batwoman Season 3 trailer. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Please check out my books, links in the description, all available at Amazon.com, including the Pineys books 1 through 6. Finally got word the cover is coming 4/7 in a day or two, after much waiting. So I hope to have that out by the end of the week. I know I keep promising it, but we had problems and these things happen. Now, Batwoman is probably the worst show ever produced. I don't see any other way around that. It is god awful. It is just god awful. It started god awful and it actually got worse. I didn't think this show could get worse, but it just continues to spiral down. Although I will say that this trailer actually isn't too bad. But the reason it's not too bad is because the Mad Hatter's in it. And the Mad Hatter is not a Batwoman villain. The Mad Hatter is a Batman villain. So this is the equivalent of the ladies going, "Oh, please help us, men." It really is. And the guy who plays Mad Hatter is not too bad. He's pretty spot on with it. But you really should just be ashamed of this show, CW. And I don't slam the talent. At least I try not to. There's not, I'm sure some of the actors in here would be good in other roles. But the people who are making the creative decisions on this show should not be allowed to make television or any kind of entertainment ever again. They are either purposely making the wrongest decisions creatively, or they're just so checked out they just don't care, and everybody here is just grabbing a paycheck. But this guy, he makes a nice Mad Hatter, does a good performance. Red Alice, of course, is back. Red Alice, who's supposed to be sort of like halfway between the Joker and Harley, I guess, and one of the creative hooks for Batwoman is she is the sister of Kate Kane, the woman who is Batwoman, who is Ruby Rose, played by Ruby Rose, who left the show. And I'll say again, for a lead actress to leave a show, the show has to be absolute sewage, absolute toxicity. This show, she and her agent had to have concluded that this show was actually hurting her career to be a lead on. That's how bad the show is. That you would get a lead in the show. Because once you get a lead in the show as an actor, that opens the doors to other leads. That makes your career to the point at which, even if the show is okay, right? Even if you get a minor show, you look at a guy like, what's his name? Major Dad, right? How did he get that show? He was the co-lead on Simon and Simon, which I thought was a fun show. I always liked Simon and Simon. But, he didn't really get much after that, but he had been a co-lead, so eventually they moved him up to, I guess it was Major Dad, and he got a couple other shows because he had been a lead. If he hadn't been a lead, no way he'd get those shows. Ruby Rose actually took a step down to take the lead on a TV show, having a movie career. She has a movie career. I mean, she's been in John Wick, a pretty big hit. And for her, this show is just an albatross, I think, around her neck, career-wise. The Bat is back. No, he's not. He's not back. Because it's he. The Bat is not Batwoman, and everybody knows it. So stop doing stuff like that. And this is the main problem with the people who make the decisions at the CW and the producers of the show. They are purposely going out of their way to infuriate any Batman fans who don't watch the show, by the way. I'm a huge Batman fan. I didn't even watch Gotham. And Gotham wasn't bad. I saw like one episode of Gotham. It was okay. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not down for the not Batman entertainment CW. No one is. And by the time you finally trot out an actual Bruce Wayne, you will have beaten to death the franchise that, that laid the golden egg. You did it backwards. As always, DC does everything backwards, it seems. If you had started with a Batman TV show, a strong Batman TV show, even if you had to get a different actor, wasn't in the movies or whatever, and I understand Warner Brothers didn't want to conflate the Batman on the TV with the Batman in the movies, which is a shame because that's what fans really want. They would have loved to have seen a no-name actor who really embodied Bruce Wayne, looked like him, acted like him, did all the Batman things, build him up on the TV show and spin him into movies. They would have loved it. They would have absolutely went bananas. And yeah, you would have had to back the money truck to that guy's house. But if you had built him up, if you had specifically picked a guy who was essentially no one and built up his career, and then if he asked for too much money in the movie, you'd be like, man. In fact, you could have given him a contract. Come here. You could have given him a contract when he signed on for Batman that said, well, you owe us 2 movies or whatever, or 3 movies or whatever. And he would have been, an unnamed actor who just looked like Bruce Wayne and had talent. Oh, he would have signed that in a second. He'd still be down for millions. Yeah, maybe he wouldn't have made as much money signing a contract 10 years in advance and then the whole thing blows up. And you could always get famous guys to be the villains, side characters, whatever. But instead, you do everything ass backwards. You do Batwoman, you did Pennyworth, the show about Alfred, which made 0 sense. That's the only show that made less sense than Batwoman. Now you're finally getting around to do Batgirl. Batgirl should have definitely come before Batwoman in the hierarchy. It should have been Batman, Robin, maybe Nightwing, Teen Titans, Batgirl, then maybe Batwoman. That would have been the order. Instead, you've got this horrible show. And this was hostile to the fans instantly. Ruby Rose made these smug, I analyzed it. They made these smug trailers. Oh, that costume will be perfect when it fits a woman. If you want to waste your time, October 13th. That was just an unnecessary slam against men. The feminist Batwoman project is a complete failure. No one's watching the show. Well, I shouldn't say no one. There's always some people who watch the show. There's always some Nielsen ratings. I don't know what the bottom is. I don't know if there's an actual 0 for Nielsen ratings, but when you consider that 330 million people live in the United States and this show struggles to get 400,000 people, that's essentially nothing. That's an essentially nothing audience. That's not even close to 1%. That's a percentage of a percent. And in the 80s, I'll tell you exactly how they would have made this movie. They would have, or a TV show. They would have gotten the hottest girl imaginable to be Batwoman, put her in this tight, skimpiest outfit. All the villains would have been equally hot, and it would have been catfights all day long with a few male stuntmen as the henchmen getting thrown around, and it would have been very, very popular because it would have appealed to the 18 to 35 male demo, which has always been the classic demo for TV. For some reason, Hollywood has decided to pursue an older female lesbian demo, and I'm not joking about that. This is what I've heard from people. And there's no reason not to have TV shows potentially for a lesbian audience, but understand you're talking about 4% of the population potentially, if the show is specifically aimed at lesbians. You're talking about a niche entertainment property like Batman. It was already niche. I mean, even if you take the entire comic book audience, you'd struggle to get to 1 million viewers if it was just comic book guys. So you have to appeal things beyond the comic books, which typically superhero stuff does. unless you've got this narrow agenda and narrow audience. So you're essentially taking the superhero genre, cutting it back to the lesbian audience for some reason, and then sneering at the original audience. And keep in mind, no one likes to be sneered at. No one, me as a Batman fan, I would not watch this show. I refused to. Well, I watched the first episode just to make fun of it, but I refused to support the show in any way. You might argue I'm supporting it now. No, I'm not. Here, look, downvote. And I encourage you all not to watch this show, because the only way they'll learn is to lose so much money, to just collapse underneath their own weight, that they finally come back to us begging, please, please, please watch our new Batman TV series, please, which they'll eventually be forced to do. But as long as you have these agenda-driven politics in what amounts to, it's supposedly escapism, it's not really. And the show is just an utter train wreck. I mean, without Kate Kane, you don't have the two sisters fighting, but you have one sister still in it. You've got a cast of characters no one cares about, including Lucius Fox's son, who they're trotting out as a potential backup Batman, which was floated in the comics, and even the comic guys were like, no. And everybody's running around the Batcave in the Bruce Wayne's manor. That's his house. I mean, it's a guy's house. They just take it over because, well, Batman's not here and we're substitute Batman people. It was barely plausible when Ruby Rose did it. At least she was his cousin, and there was an explanation there. But she did it with such, like, well, I'm the true bad person, or whatever you'd call it. And, it makes zero sense. The whole show makes zero sense in my view. And now they just have this woman of color, and I'm sure she's a fine actress, but it's more of a statement to tear down Batman, because this agenda-driven politics isn't about money. It's about proving a point. And if the point isn't to make money, then why are you doing it? Now, the answers for the zealots behind this is, well, we're going to show the patriarchy. The patriarchy audience just left. They're gone. They're gone from comics. They're gone from this kind of entertainment, obviously. They're off finding other modes of entertainment, or they're watching the old stuff. And there's plenty of old stuff to watch. So you are just sucking air. At a time when studios need that money. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot, which I'm all for, because keep in mind, as I've said in previous videos, these are multinational corporations that also run news divisions. So screw them all. But this is what you get in the world of corporate. The corporate guys decide something. They decided woke is where it's at. They allowed their upper echelons to be infiltrated by woke idiots who make woke decisions based on their politics and not money or profit or anything sensible. They did this in the past too, but it was driven with the idea that we're going to make money. Purely. Now it's driven by, well, if we don't make money, everybody will call us brave and stunning. No one's calling you brave and stunning. No one cares about what Batwoman. No one cared about it when you announced it. No one's cared about it now, and even fewer people. What you had was a few diehard comic book fans tuning in to go, well, maybe it'll be okay. Yeah. And now you're in their third season. I mean, talk about a waste of money. And you have the temerity to bring back a Batman villain. And rumor is Poison Ivy's going to be thrown into the mix, because now she's kind of a sort of a lesbian bisexual icon in the comics. Another retrofitting. And, you might pull in a few people, I guess, for that, but you grossly overestimate the fan base for Batman villains. I mean, they're hoping for Batman to show These diehard fans are still hoping for Batman to come in and just make everything right. And you would make their day if you did, but you'll never do that. Because for you to do that, that would be admitting defeat in your own wacky agenda here of, I don't know, feminism or intersectional BS, whatever the hell you're trying to do. I know this, you're not trying to make an interesting TV show. I mean, everybody, if I ran the CW, I would fire everybody on this show immediately. In the top, I would just cut off the head of that show. I'd produce it myself, and I'd immediately, I'd fix it. I'd fix it, and it would be, I would undermine everything that had gone before. I'd spend the whole show doing fan service and essentially apologizing to the fans through narrative. And then I'd wrap it up in one season because it's too embarrassing to continue. Or I'd just shut the whole thing down and start over. That would probably be the best course of action. And launch the Batman show. Although, probably the CW still doesn't want to do that because Warner Brothers, and there's probably a big legal hassle and the characters. They probably got all the licenses to these characters, but they can't touch Batman because the Robert Pattinson movie is coming out. So anything related to the Batman character, has to be on the down low for legal reasons, or else they have to pay another division. So it's very complicated. The lawyers kind of ruin everything in that respect. You wonder why. Well, why don't they just make a Batman TV show? That's 90% of the reason. The lawyers. There's all this contractual stuff that has to go down, and they're constantly fighting over the franchise and their little piece of it, and this is the end result. Like, the talent is given this half-ass idea with only half the characters. It's like when they split James Bond and Spectre. Yeah, how did that work out? The guys who had James Bond said, oh, we'll just do movies without Spectre, and screwed over the other. This is what happens in business, and this is why, icons, franchises like this should have a very limited shelf life. I think the 75-year mark is about perfect for franchises and copyrights. I think at the end of 75 years, everything should just go in the public domain. And then this would encourage companies to move on and develop other properties. But unfortunately, we live in a world in which they will squeeze every last dollar out of things like this until the franchises are so hated they have to put it on a shelf for 20 years and wait. And wait until the audience literally dies off. And that's it for me, Tony D. Joan and I will see you in the next one.